Welcome to Abyss floor number 12. This one's a little bit easier than the last floor, but does rely heavily on some RNG. On this floor we'll be fighting Sven. The gimmicks for this floor is you have to have 3 of your units be 3-star base units, and we need to kill Sven without triggering Outrage. Also, you can't use dual attacks in this fight. Outrage happens on Sven when somebody on his team crits you for the 7th time, and the adds start getting boosts to their crit chance. So you want to take an anti-crit unit as your 5-star unit. I went ahead and used choux on Snow Crystal to give her the best chance to not be crit. You could also use Diene as your 5-star for a healer and use that for anti-crit. In fact, if you burn her skills, you could probably keep anti-crit up a little longer. But I wanted choux because I needed to do damage. The adds get scaling damage or scaling crit chance as they move along, so the longer the fight goes, the more chance you have to fail. I took Angelic Montmorency as my healer. I changed her from Tome to Unfading Memories to boost her healing. I didn't want Tome on her because you don't want her cycling her turns, or she'll cycle off the anti-crit. Unbound Knight Arrowell makes for a great tank in this 3-star fight. Her S1 and her S3 both have strips. I'll explain why that's important in a minute. And Zealot Carmen Rose is probably one of the best 3-star DPS you can take for this. She's got a buff block in her kit and does respectable damage, though that spot could be filled with anybody. Pearl Horizon, any 3-star damage dealer. So the gimmicks in this fight, other than the unit requirements with only one 5-star and making sure you don't get crit. Another nice thing about Momo is her S1 has a sleep on it. Now I failed to sleep the ad, but that can help, because if the ads are asleep or stunned, as with Arrowell doing a stun here, they can't attack you, and therefore they can't get crits. And the less chance they have to crit, the easier this fight's going to be. Okay, so far so good. No crits, so I'll put up anti-crit to make it even harder to crit. Choux being up front with Snow Crystal, she'll take most of the attacks. That makes things a lot easier. Now, notice Zealot Carmen Rose's S3 here puts buff block on Sven. This is important because when you get to the very end of the fight, Sven kind of pulls a Nightmare Queen effect. Sven will give himself immortality for like 2 rounds, 1 or 2 rounds. And that's just more time for the adds to try to crit you and ruin your chances at completing this. If you use Carmen Rose's S3 before you kill Sven, the buff block will prevent him from getting immortality, and then you can just kill him, so you can get through that rather quickly. If that doesn't work out and he still gets immortality, that's where Unbound Knight Arrowell comes into play. Her S3 strips all those buffs, and her S1 also can strip those buffs, so she can help you strip the immortality and then clear the phase before you get crit and lose the win condition. As you can see, this Carmen Rose does pretty respectable damage. I mean, she is on a rage set, though there was no debuffs there to trigger it. I don't think that permanent debuff triggers rage set, but she's just on my generic light expedition gear. And another thing that I kind of prefer about choux in this fight is choux does really nice damage, and she can do it on a counter. Now, I'm not sure if you can kill the adds or not. Maybe you can, and make the fight a little bit safer to not trigger the anti-crit, but I still think the best way to do it is just to burst Sven down. If you get unlucky and the adds crit, and again, it's just RNG based. They start out with very low chance to crit, but it gets higher and higher as the fight goes on, so I think I did this twice because I just got unlucky, the adds crit, it triggered Outrage, had to restart. You can see with the sleep on one of the adds, that's just one less add that can take a chance to crit at me. So another real nice benefit of having Angelic Montmorency on the team. Now with the barriers on my unit, sometimes it's a little bit hard to tell whether or not you've been crit to see how you're doing. But you can see it right there. If you look at Sven's attack, you'll see the trial times 4. That means I can be crit 2 more times, and we're only 66% of the way through this fight. 2 more crit chances, ends the fight, and the mobs are starting to get boosts to their crit chance. So again, it all comes down to RNG and getting Sven dead as quickly as possible without triggering the outrage from having 7 or more crits come in. And I know the description says his allies, but it's really anybody. Sven himself can trigger it as well, so you've got 4 people taking shots at critting you. So whether you use Diene or choux, it's really important to keep this anti-crit skill up. Choux will allow you to do more damage. Diene has faster cycling on her anti-crit, so you can keep the anti-crit up longer. You'll have to strike a balance and figure out which works best for you. If you've got some really good strong 3-star DPSs, maybe instead of Momo, you run that DPS, and instead of choux, you run the anti-crit unit. So as we approach the end of this fight, I want to save Carmen Rose's S3 because I really want to get the buff block onto Sven. Because if I don't get the buff block on Sven, then I will need to I'll need to strip Sven. And Arrowell's S3 is a really good reliable strip, but it's on a pretty long cooldown, and I don't know if she'll lap around in time for it. So again, keeping the little ads asleep is really helpful. I'll go ahead and see if I can knock Sven down.
Time to spread the word.
Okay, so he is almost ready to kill. Try for a dual attack. Ah, there's another crit. Ack, another crit. Okay, so I'm at trial 6 now. I get 1 more crit and the run's over for me. That's how tight this is, and that's how much RNG you're fighting. And that's part of why I think Carmen Rose is so good for this fight.
Want me to take care of that?
I'm going to burn my choux. Keeping souls to burn choux is very good because if you've lost anti-crit, you can burn choux for extra turns so that you can get your anti-crit off again. Now everybody's on anti-crit, that should hopefully help. I'm going to use the saved skill here, try to apply buff block. Buff block's stuck, and because buff block's on there, he doesn't proc his immortality, so the next hit kills. And that saves me the risk of 1 more round of potential crits. If you don't get the buff block, that's fine. The hit would have triggered his immortality, and then I just have to rely on Arrowell's S1 or S3 to strip the immortality off, and then the next hit kills. If you don't have choux or Diene, your best bet is to take a ton of damage and burst it down as fast as possible because you're going to be on the clock big time. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it helps you complete your floor number 12. I will see you on floor number 13. Oh, and while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great one.